Hello and welcome to this Python tutorial series. This will be a series of videos put together in one playlist to help you learn the basics of Python. Okay, so let's dive into it. First, we will need to download Python. So go to python.org and then click Downloads and click All Releases. And then here it'll show you which Python version to download. This is the latest Python version, 3.11.1. And at the time of this video, this is the version, but if you were watching this video later, then you'll see a different version. But don't worry, all the code will still work. Now scroll down, and then you can see that these are the older Python versions. So you can download these if you want to. Okay, so when you have downloaded Python, go to your file folder and then click on the download, and then make sure you hit add Python to path. Otherwise, you will not be able to follow along with this project. Okay, so we also need an editor. An editor will help you to debug your code, or it'll autocomplete your code. And you can see in this picture, you have choices to select, and it'll know like what you have, and it'll help you a lot with your code. So I recommend getting one editor. You just have to download it. Um, yeah. So you can download many different editors. There's PyCharm and Visual Studio Code, but I prefer Visual Studio Code. So go ahead and click download. It's right at this page, code.visualstudio.com, and then we can get started. So once you have that, create a file in your File Explorer and name it whatever you want, and then go to your VS Code and then open that file. So as you can see, I've named my file Python lessons, and then I've opened it in VS Code. So you should see some screen like this, and then open up this Python lessons and create a file or a folder. So for tutorial purposes, um, I'm going to create a folder called lesson 1. And then in that folder, you can open a folder by just clicking it. You can create a file, and then we'll say first.py. And remember, you have to have this py at the end because this stands for a Python file, and we're coding in Python. So hit enter, and the file gets created. And then, yeah. So before you continue, make sure to go to extensions. It's this 4 squares here. And then go ahead and search Python. You can see that Python pops up here. So if you click it, then you can see that it's for linting, debugging, Jupyter notebooks, code formatting, refactoring, and a bunch of other stuff. So this can help you with your uh, code, and it'll make it a lot easier to code because it'll autocomplete and do what it says. So go ahead and click download right here. It'll say download, and mine doesn't because it's already downloaded. And by the way, this is only for VS Code because it's not there in any other editor. Okay, so close that tab once you're done, and then you also probably want to like configure your Python. So you can click this, and then it'll say enter interpreter path. You can enter the path of whatever so browse your file folder and then find out where you downloaded the Python, and then you can select that interpreter so that your Python is ready to go. So now once you've done that, it's time to start your coding. So in Python, there's something called a print statement. So just type print, and then you see this here. You can do this. You can just click enter, and it'll automatically add the parentheses. And this is a print statement. Okay. So once again, print. It'll automatically pop up. You could just click enter, and it'll show up. Okay. Now you want to print something. So when you print something, something gets added to what's called the terminal, right? It'll show you the result. Okay, so let me just close this for now. And then, so you could either put single quotes or double quotes, whatever you want. Um, okay, so I prefer double quotes, but there's some cases where you could use single quotes and some cases where you could use double quotes. Okay, so I'm going to use double quotes, and then you can type your name. Okay, so once you type your name, you can click this button, which will allow you to run your program. Okay, so since we printed this, which is my name, you see this in the terminal. Okay, so that's fun. Now, if I were to change this to single quotes, then you would also see the same result. Once again, this is the result, right? So it doesn't matter, but in some cases it does, which I will be showing you in later tutorials. Okay, now let's talk about the different types of things. So you don't need to necessarily always print words. You can print like numbers or something, right? So save. Also, remember to, like, if you want to, there's a little dot up here showing you that you haven't saved your work. So just to save, you hit Control S or probably Command S on Mac. Okay, so now if we print the 9, then a 9 appears, right? So there, like this, there are different types of um, possible things you can print. So first, this is a string, right? So a string is with single quotes or double quotes, and then you type whatever you want, right? And then there's also like an integer. It's called integer. So it could be a negative number, or it could be a positive number, or it could be 0. Okay, so for example, integer is 20. And then you have a floating point number, or a decimal, basically. So like 20.33333, right? That's a floating point number. And then you have a boolean. A boolean is either true or false, whichever one you require, whichever one you need to use, right? So you have true and you have false. Now there are other things like lists and sets and other things, but those are more advanced and that will be covered in later tutorials. Okay, so these are the types, and you can print any of these. It doesn't really matter, but it matters in whatever case you want. Okay, now let's talk about um, how Python interprets things, right? So let's say we do print, and print is always with lowercase, remember? And then let's print true, okay? And then we'll also print false after that. So to go to a new line, just hit enter, and then you have a new line. So if you run it, you get true and then false. So why is this happening? So first it's running line 1, which is saying print true, so it prints true. Then it's running line 2, so that says print false, so it's printing false. Okay, so now we'll talk about like order of things and how they go. So you probably heard in math that parentheses always goes first. It's the same case here, right? So let's say I have the string like percent, right? Let's say I have that string, and then you can multiply that string by, let's say, 10 times, right? This is the symbol for multiplication. It'll be covered in the next tutorial. So just know that it's an asterisk. Okay, so now I'm multiplying this string by 10, right? So first, it's not running to print this. It's running what's inside the parentheses, and then it's printing this. So you see this inside, so it's going to multiply this by 10, or it's going to show this 10 times, and then it's going to print. So basically, it's going to do this 10 times. Okay? So now if we run it, we see that it comes 10 times, right? So yeah, so let's review what we learned in this tutorial. So we learned that there are different types of things, like there's strings, there's integers, there's floating point numbers, and then there's also booleans, right? Okay. And then we learned about the print statement. So you can print using single quotes or double quotes for strings. You can print something. You can also print integers. You can also print floating point numbers. Okay, and much more. And now the last thing we covered was how Python interprets things. So if we say print and then true and print and false, then we see that it runs the first line and then the second line. So, and then we also learned that parentheses always comes first. So it does what's in the parentheses, and then it like does what the outside thing says, and then it runs line by line. Okay, that's what we covered in this tutorial. In the next tutorial, we'll be learning about variables, different operators, and yeah. So thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And all the code that was shown in this video will be put in a GitHub for you to see. And yeah.